Okay, so let's unpack this right from the start. I want you to do a little mental exercise with me. Just, close your eyes, unless you're driving, obviously, and picture two very specific, very different places.
All right, I'm playing along.
Okay, first, visualize the coast of West Africa. Like, really picture it. The humidity, the heat, the sheer rhythm of the Atlantic Ocean hitting the Liberian shore. It's tropical, it's vibrant, it's just loud. Got it.
Yeah, I'm there. I can see it.
Okay, now hard cut. Complete shift. I want you to picture the mist rolling off the Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee.
Wow, okay. That's a pivot.
Right. Picture the scent of pine needles, the damp earth, that deep, ancient quiet of the American South, and maybe, I don't know, a banjo picking somewhere way off in the distance.
You're talking about two completely different worlds? I mean, they're almost alien to each other in terms of climate and culture.
Exactly. I mean, on a map, they are thousands of miles apart. But here is where this gets really interesting for our deep dive today. What if I told you that in the music of one specific person, those two worlds don't just meet, they actually collide?
They bleed into each other.
Yes, they bleed into each other to create something that sounds like an absolute contradiction in terms, at least until you actually hear it. We are talking about a genre label that is starting to pop up literally everywhere right now. Afro-Appalachian.
It's such a fascinating descriptor, honestly. It stops you in your tracks because it forces you to reconcile two identities that history and, frankly, the music industry as a whole usually keeps strictly separated.
It totally disrupts the categories. And the architect of this specific sound is a guy named Janjay Lowe, but the world knows him professionally as Mon Rovîa. And look, if you've been paying attention to the charts or just the algorithms the last couple of years, you definitely know the name.
Oh, absolutely. He's unavoidable right now in the best way.
But if you haven't, you are in for a serious trait because this story is, honestly, it's wild. It's a movie script.
It is the story of geography, absolutely. But it's also a story about trauma, about the modern musical landscape, and about how borders, both physical borders and genre borders, are becoming increasingly fluid. We aren't just talking about a musician here. We're talking about a cultural synthesizer.
And the timing for this deep dive couldn't be better. I mean, it is February 2026. Mon Rovîa has just dropped this massive new body of work called Bloodline.
Which is doing incredible numbers.
Crazy numbers. His single, Heavy Foot, is sitting at number 25 on the AAA charts right now, the adult album alternative charts. So he is arguably one of the most important voices in folk music at this exact moment.
Which is significant in and of itself. Just think about that. That a refugee from Liberia is defining the sound of American folk in 2026.
Right. So here is our mission for today's deep dive. We are going to unpack exactly how this happened. How does a kid from Liberia end up becoming the voice of Appalachia? We're going to look at his origin story, which, like I said, is cinematic. And we're going to break down this incredible 4-part musical structure he built called The Hero's Journey.
Because he didn't just release albums, he released a saga.
A literal saga. And we are going to look at the philosophy behind it all. We have his tour manifests. We've looked at the messaging from his merchandise, specifically this recurring idea of, quote, heal with others. And we have the biographical records.
Yeah, so this isn't just a music review. This is a look at healing. We're looking at how you process profound displacement through a guitar and a microphone.
Exactly. But before we get to the biography, I want to just stick on that label for a second.
Yeah.
Afro-Appalachian. It sounds cool, sure, it looks great on a playlist cover, but is it just marketing fluff? Like, is it just two cool words smashed together to sell a brand?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And frankly, if you know your history, it isn't a marketing gimmick at all. It's actually a reunion.
A reunion. Explain that.
Well, we tend to think of Appalachian folk as this purely white Scots-Irish tradition. Fiddles in the mountains, that high, lonesome sound. But think about the central instrument of that genre, the banjo.
Right, the banjo. Twangy, round, very classically American.
Well, no. That's the thing. It's not originally American. It's West African.
Really?
Yeah. Instruments like the akonting, the ngoni, these are the direct ancestors of the modern banjo. Enslaved people brought that technology, that structural design, and those specific rhythms across the Atlantic to the American South. So for centuries, Appalachian music actually was Afro-Appalachian. It was fundamentally a blend.
Wow. Okay, so it was always a fusion.
Exactly. It was only in the early 20th century, when the recording industry came along, that they started separating things for marketing. They created hillbilly records for white audiences and race records for black audiences, and we culturally segregated the sound. We literally drew a line down the middle of a shared culture.
So when Monrovia steps up to a microphone and calls his music Afro-Appalachian, he isn't inventing a fusion at all. He's reclaiming a lineage that was already there.
That's exactly it. He's picking up a thread, but, and here is the nuance we really need to get right, he is doing it through a very modern lens. He isn't playing traditional old-time spirituals in a museum exhibit. He is taking that ancestral connection and filtering it through the experience of a modern refugee, an adoptee, and a kid who was raised on the internet.
Right, it's not a historical reenactment.
No, it's a restoration of the genre, but it's also a mutation of it.
It's like he picked up that thread that was dropped in, 1920, and just tied it directly to a trap beat from 2020.
A perfect analogy. And that creates this incredible tension in the music.
Mm.
You hear the banjo, which feels ancient and grounded and earthy, but then you hear these production choices that feel very modern, very digital. It's the sound of being in two places at once.
Which, honestly, is the story of his life. Let's jump into the time machine here. We have to go back to the beginning. Let's start with the name itself, Mon Rovîa.
It's a literal anchor.
Right. Because his birth name is Janjay Lowe. But he chooses the stage name, Mon Rovîa. And for those who might have skipped geography class, Monrovia is the capital city of Liberia.
Yes. And think about the deep psychology of that choice. He was born in Monrovia, Liberia, but he was adopted at age 7 by an American family. So he leaves his place of birth as a very young child.
7 is so young, but old enough to remember.
Exactly, you have memories. So by taking the name of the city as his professional identity, he is making a very specific, very loud statement. He's saying, no matter where I go, no matter how American my folk music sounds, this is where I begin. This is the root. It's a way of honoring roots that were physically left behind.
It's almost like he's carrying the map in his name. He is the place. And speaking of maps, the journey this kid took after being adopted is exhausting just to read about.
Oh, it is a dizzying trajectory.
So he gets adopted at 7, and the family doesn't just settle in one spot and stay put. They live in Florida, then they go to Montana, then the Bahamas, and finally they land in Tennessee.
Just pause on that list for a second, let that sink in. Florida, Montana, the Bahamas, Tennessee.
It's whiplash.
It really is. You have the humidity of Florida, you have the big sky country, and the freezing winters of the Mountain West, you have tropical islands, and then you have the deep South.
It's like a randomized travel itinerary.
And sociologically, it creates what we often call a third culture experience. When a child moves between such vastly different environments during their really formative years, they often don't feel fully, quote-unquote, of any single one of them.
Because they haven't been anywhere long enough to put down deep roots.
Right. So what happens? They become incredibly adaptable. They learn to synthesize their surroundings.
Right.
And I think if you look at his music later on, that ability to blend genres effortlessly, to not feel restricted by the idea of this is what country music is or this is what African music is, that comes directly from that youth in transit.
You have to imagine being 10 years old, moving from the snow of Montana to the beaches of the Bahamas. Your brain has to be constantly rewiring itself just to understand where you fit in, what the social cues are.
Precisely. You become an observer by necessity. You learn to watch people, to mimic, to adapt to whatever the local frequency is. And that is the fundamental skill set of a storyteller. That's the skill set of a songwriter. You're always sort of on the outside looking in.
And the final stop on that transit, the place where the family finally lands, was Chattanooga, Tennessee. And according to the biographical records we have, this is the pivot point. This is where the Appalachian part of Afro-Appalachian starts to take root.
Chattanooga is a city with a very deep, rich musical history. It's right there in the foothills. And this is where he was first really exposed to folk music. It wasn't something he brought with him from Liberia in his suitcase. It was something he found in the mountains of Tennessee.
And he starts learning instruments, right? He picks up the ukulele, he picks up the guitar, he's becoming a musician. But, and here's the curveball that I think really surprises people when they dig into his discography. He didn't start as a folk singer at all.
No, not even close.
If we look at the archives, if we go way back to the SoundCloud era around 2017, he's uploading his first tracks. And then a few years later in 2021, he drops his actual debut album, Dark Continent. And if you listen to it, it sounds absolutely nothing like the stuff he's playing at the Grand Ole Opry today.
No, Dark Continent is fascinating because it is a snapshot of an artist desperately trying to find his voice. It wasn't folk. It was this raw blend of hip-hop, trap, and R&B.
Trap music. From the guy who is now the total darling of the acoustic folk scene.
It's a leap. But that sonic history is so important to understand him. It adds all this texture. When you listen to his modern folk tracks, they have a rhythmic complexity that owes a massive debt to that trap background. Just think about trap beats for a second. They rely heavily on sharp hi-hats, on rapid triplets, on deep rolling sub-bass.
Right, that rattling hi-hat sound, like tick, tick, tick,
That's
tick, tick.
killer.
It's very fast, very nervous energy almost.
Exactly. Now, take that sound in your head and compare it to a traditional banjo roll.
Oh, wow.
Right. It's also incredibly rapid. It's highly percussive. It's rhythmic and cyclical. So when he eventually pivoted to folk, he brought that trap ear with him. He plays the ukulele and the acoustic guitar with a sense of rhythm that feels way more like a hip-hop beat maker than a traditional campfire strummer. It's percussive, it's driving, it pushes the song forward.
That makes so much sense. So he's experimenting in 2021. He's trying on these different hats. He's doing the hip-hop thing. And then 2022 hits, and something just shifts. The tectonic plates move.
2022 is the absolute pivot point. The style shifts noticeably and definitively toward folk. You have tracks released in that window like Vulture Culture, Where the Rivers Run, and Borderline.
Even the titles, like Vulture Culture, Where the Rivers Run, they immediately sound more earthy, more grounded in nature. But why the shift? Did he just get bored of rap? Did he think folk was more marketable?
I don't think it was boredom, and I definitely don't think it was purely a cynical marketing move. I think it was about utility. Folk music is, traditionally speaking, a storytelling medium. It is literally the music of the people. It's used to process local history, systemic struggle, relationship to the land. For someone who is deeply exploring an Afro-Appalachian identity, someone trying to make sense of being a refugee, an international adoptee, a black man in the American South, folk music offers a narrative framework that trap music might not have provided in the exact same way. Folk allows for a very specific, raw kind of vulnerability.
It's just the perfect vessel for the story he suddenly realized he needed to tell. And speaking of stories, this brings us to what I think is the most ambitious thing he's done, and maybe one of the most ambitious things anyone in folk has done recently, the acts.
Yes, the hero's journey.
Starting in July 2023, he decides he's not just releasing singles anymore. He initiates a massive 4-part saga, 4 entire EPs, released over the course of basically 2 years, structured explicitly around the hero's journey narrative framework. And I really want to walk through these titles one by one because they tell a story all by themselves, even before you hear a single note.
Let's do it. But as we go through them, let's also unpack the psychology of these titles, because he isn't just using literary terms to sound smart or pretentious. He's actively mapping out a trauma response.
Okay, Act 1. Released in 2023, the title is The Wandering.
The Wandering. Just the word implies displacement. It implies being lost or searching for a path that isn't clear yet. If we map this back to the immigrant or the refugee experience, this is the departure phase. This is the profound feeling of not having a home. You are physically present in a new country, but spiritually, psychologically, you are drifting.
It sets the stage perfectly. You have to admit you're lost before you can be found. Then later that same year, 2023, we get Act 2, Trials.
Trials, the conflict phase. Every hero in every myth faces obstacles. In the classic Joseph Campbell myth structure, this is where the hero fights the dragon. But in Mon Rovia's context, the dragon isn't a literal monster. The dragon is likely assimilation. It's racism. It's the sheer struggle of growing up or the relentless feeling of being an outsider in Tennessee. The music in this era feels a bit more urgent. It's a bit more conflicted. You can hear the struggle.
Then comes 2024, Act 3. And this title, man, this one hits incredibly heavy. The Dying of Self.
That is a profoundly heavy title. The Dying of Self. In the hero's journey framework, this is what Campbell calls the abyss. It's the ultimate point of death and rebirth.
Let's really dig into that. Dying of self. It sounds almost morbid on the surface. Why is this a necessary step in the journey? Why can't he just go straight from facing his trials to getting the victory?
Because you cannot solve a new problem with an old identity. That is the entire crux of the hero's journey. The self that started the journey, the traumatized kid from Liberia, or the confused teenager trying to fit in Montana, that version of the ego simply isn't equipped to find lasting peace. It has too much baggage. So that version of the ego has to be systematically dismantled.
Dismantled is a very polite word for it. In the music, it sounds more like a complete implosion.
It is violent, psychologically speaking. If you look at the track Crooked the Road from this specific era, the production actually gets murkier. It's less purely acoustic. It gets more distorted and layered. He's sonically representing mental confusion. He's grappling with what psychologists literally call ego death. For a transnational adoptee, this is deeply specific. It's the terrifying realization that, wait, I'm not fully Liberian anymore, but I'm also not fully American. The entire identity I tried to build just to please my adoptive parents or to blend in with my peers, it's just a mask. And that mask has to burn.
That's terrifying. To basically burn down your own house psychologically while you are still living inside it?
It is terrifying. But look at the merch messaging from this specific era. We checked the sources on this. It wasn't about hope, it was about sorrow. He forced his audience to sit in that profound discomfort with him. He didn't rush to the shiny resolution. And I think, honestly, that is exactly why the fans connected so hard to this phase. We live in a culture of toxic positivity, right?
Oh, yeah. Good vibes only. Manifest your best life.
Right. Good vibes only. And Mon Rovîa steps up and says, no, bad vibes right now. We're actively dying right now. We're grieving the selves we have to leave behind.
Which makes the eventual pivot to the finale actually feel earned. It's not cheap grace. He did the work.
Precisely. You simply cannot have a resurrection without a death first.
And that brings us to the resolution, early 2025. The final part, Act 4. Atonement.
Atonement. Coming to terms with the past. Finding a sense of peace. In the mythic structure, it's the return home. But notice the specific word choice he uses. Atonement. That usually implies making up for a wrong you committed.
Right, like apologizing, like saying sorry for a sin. But what does he have to be sorry for? He's the one who was displaced. He was the child.
And that is the absolute beauty of it. In this psychological context, atonement can also be read literally as at one-ment, becoming one with yourself, finally reconciling the deeply fractured parts of your identity. It's the Liberian child and the American adult finally looking at each other and shaking hands.
Wow, at one-ment. So when you look at it like that, wandering, trials, dying of self, atonement, it completely changes how you listen to the music, doesn't it? It's not just a playlist anymore.
Completely. It elevates it. It turns a standard discography into a linear narrative. It's not just a collection of catchy songs. It's a memoir delivered in 4 parts. And what's truly brilliant about how he executed this is that he invited the audience to go on this intense psychological journey with him in real time. We had to wait for atonement. We were living through the dying of self with him for months.
It creates this incredibly tight, bonded connection with the listener, which actually segues perfectly into his whole broader philosophy. Because if you go to his official website, if you look at his merch store, there is this 3-word slogan plastered everywhere: heal with others.
Heal with others. It's the core thesis.
Not heal yourself. Not I am healing. Heal with others.
That preposition with is doing a massive amount of heavy lifting there.
Oh, absolutely. But I do have to play devil's advocate here for a minute. Heal with others. It's a great slogan. It looks fantastic, printed on a hoodie, sold for $65. We see this all the time in the modern wellness economy, right? Commodifying trauma, slapping a therapy buzzword on a t-shirt. Is this just brilliant branding? Is he just selling the aesthetic of therapy to a sad generation?
It is a totally valid cynicism. I mean, we are trained by the internet to see mindfulness as a marketing tactic these days.
Yeah.
But I think with Mon Rovîa, we have to look at the actual receipts. Literally.
You mean the financial receipts? Put your money where your mouth is.
I do. Let's talk about the Winter Wash 24 campaign.
Right. This was the single that was released from Act 4, Atonement.
Correct. Now, normally in the industry, an artist releases a highly anticipated single from the final act of a massive project. It streams millions of times, and they collect a massive check. But Mon Rovîa announced publicly that all proceeds, every single cent generated from that specific track, would go directly to the International Rescue Committee, the IRC.
Which is the global organization that helps refugees rebuild their lives.
Connect the dots here. You have Janjay Lowe, a child born in Monrovia, adopted and brought to the U.S., essentially living a refugee's story. He grows up, he struggles immensely, he goes through his trials, experiences his dying of self, and finally reaches his atonement. And what does atonement actually look like for him in the real world? It looks like giving back. It looks like taking the platform and the capital he built from his trauma and using it to fund the exact organization that helps the next generation of displaced refugees.
So the in Heal with Others isn't just about the audience standing in the room with him at a show. It's about the people who aren't in the room, the people still wandering.
It's a circular economy of trauma and recovery. He used the trauma of his past to create art, sold that art to fans who needed their own healing, and then used that money to physically, tangibly help the next child who is currently stuck in the trauma phase.
It operationalizes the art. It stops being just entertainment and starts being, I don't know, activism or direct action.
Community organizing might actually be the better term for it. He's organizing a community around the fundamental concept of recovery. It completely validates that Heal with Others is a working mission statement, not just a clever tagline to sell clothes.
And the fans are absolutely buying into the mission. I mean, we're looking at the tour manifests here from the sources. The tour wasn't called the Mon Rovîa concert tour or the Atonement tour. It was explicitly called the A Place to Gather tour.
Again, his language choices matter so much. A place to gather.
It sounds like church or a community town hall meeting. It doesn't sound like a rock show.
It reinforces that communal aspect we keep coming back to. A concert is fundamentally passive. You buy a ticket, you stand in the dark, you watch the performer, but a gathering is active. You participate. It implies that the audience is just as important to the event as the person standing on the stage. And in 2025, his promotional messaging was super explicit. It said, quote, "Join us on tour as we make our way around the world to heal."
To heal, not to party, not to rock out, not to catch a vibe, to heal. It creates a very specific, almost sacred expectation for the night. You aren't going to that venue to get drunk and forget your problems. You're going there specifically to remember them and process them with 1,000 strangers.
And looking at the merch list from the store, which, by the way, is sold out of almost everything, you see this exact theme reinforced visually. There are hoodies that say "Alive Again." There are tees that say "Daybreak Sorrow."
Daybreak Sorrow, Alive Again. These sound like victory banners after a long war.
They are. They perfectly track with the narrative arc of the acts we just discussed. Specifically, moving out of the dying of self and arriving at atonement. The merchandise isn't just branding his name, it's a physical extension of the storytelling. When a fan buys and wears that "Alive Again" hoodie, they are physically wearing the resolution of the hero's journey. They are publicly identifying themselves as survivors.
It's essentially a uniform for the gathering.
Exactly. It identifies who's in the community.
And clearly, this resonated on a massive scale. Because we are sitting here talking in 2026, but the last 2 years have been an absolute rocket ship for this guy.
The numbers are staggering. They really defy standard indie folk metrics.
Let's look at the data. By October 2024, he had accumulated over 500 million views on TikTok. 500 million views.
That is the raw power of the digital age. But notice how he used TikTok. He wasn't just doing trending dances or lip syncing. He was sharing these incredibly raw, vulnerable acoustic moments. He was bringing people into the wandering and the trials right there on their phones. He built the emotional community online way before he ever gathered them in person at a venue.
And the broader music industry caught on fast. Spotify named him one of their 2024 Juniper artists to watch. And then the major live festivals came calling. He plays Bonnaroo in 2024.
Which is incredibly poetic, right? Bonnaroo is held in Manchester, Tennessee. It's a massive, globally recognized festival, but geographically it is right in his backyard. It ties perfectly back to his Chattanooga roots. It's the ultimate homecoming show.
And then the big one. The absolute holy grail for anyone touching country or folk music in any capacity. July 2025.
Grand Ole Opry.
He makes his debut. An Afro-Appalachian artist born in Liberia, adopted at 7, former SoundCloud rapper, standing directly in the legendary wooden circle at the Opry.
It is a profoundly historic moment, and we really need to pause on the cultural weight of that. The Opry is the bedrock institution of country and folk music, but for a very long time it was a very exclusive, very white institution. By having Mon Rovîa step into that circle, it signals a massive broadening of what Appalachian music looks like to the world. It acknowledges that the story of the South is changing, and that this third culture, this beautiful, messy blend of West Africa and Tennessee, belongs on that historic stage just as much as traditional bluegrass does.
It's subversive in the best possible way. He didn't have to kick the door down or protest outside. He just walked right in the front door carrying a banjo, the actual instrument of his ancestors, and basically said, "I belong here. This is my house too."
And the audience completely agreed with him. They embraced it.
It honestly gives me chills just thinking about the full circle nature of that moment. So that brings us right up to now. Today, February 2026. The Hero's Journey saga of the 4 EPs is officially finished. Atonement is out in the world. The fans are, ideally, healed. And now, he drops a brand new album, Bloodline.
Bloodline, released in 2026.
And it is absolutely crushing it commercially. The lead single, Heavy Foot, peaked at number 25 on the US AAA charts. He is officially mainstream now.
Look at that title, Bloodline.
Yeah, let's dig into that for our final point. Because the hero's journey was very internal. It was all about the ego and the self. Bloodline feels different. It feels like a pivot.
It feels distinctly external. If the previous 2 years were all about the internal psychological journey, the hero's journey of the fragmented self-bloodline suggests a major shift outward. It suggests a deep focus on heritage, on physical genetics, on legacy. It basically asks the next logical question. Now that I am healed, now that I have atoned and found peace with myself, Where do I actually come from? Who were my people before I was adopted and my name was changed?
It feels like he's digging even deeper into that Afro side of the Afro-Appalachian equation now. He's secure in the Appalachian side, so he's looking across the ocean again.
I think so. And you can see it in the physical products. The merch store currently lists the Bloodline vinyl and the Bloodline CD as their featured products. It's a tangible, physical legacy. After the dying of self, you have to rebuild a new self. And you rebuild that foundation by understanding your literal bloodline.
It's fascinating to see the visuals he's using now, too. We mentioned the Alive Again symbol hoodie earlier, but there's also an ivory symbol tee listed in the sources.
Yes, the visual language he's developing is very consistent and very intentional. He uses these symbols, almost like ancient runes or glyphs, to represent these different emotional stages of the journey. It essentially creates a secret language for the fan base. If you know what the ivory symbol means, you're part of the gathering. You're in the club. You've done the work.
And clearly, people desperately want to be part of it. The Mon Rovîa 2025 tour poster is listed as completely sold out on the site. You cannot get it.
That scarcity implies intense value. It implies a highly dedicated fan base that wants to own a physical piece of that specific emotional moment in time. They don't just want a poster. They want the souvenir from the gathering where they felt seen.
So when we step back and look at this entire trajectory, it's kind of unbelievable. We start with a 7-year-old boy in Monrovia, Liberia. He gets adopted, moves across the entire ocean, bounces around the U.S. like a pinball from Florida to Montana, lands in Chattanooga. He starts making trap beats in his bedroom. Then he pivots, picks up a ukulele and a guitar, and constructs this massive 4-part mythological narrative about trauma and healing. And now, in 2026, he's a chart-topping artist playing the Opry and funding refugee rescues.
It is a massive testament to the sheer power of storytelling. It's a testament to the fact that in a highly digital and disconnected age, people are absolutely hungry for deep meaning. They don't just want a catchy chorus to dance to. They want a framework for their own pain. Mon Rovîa gave them that framework, and he set it to a banjo roll.
It really is inspiring, and I just keep coming back to that label from the beginning, Afro-Appalachian.
It's clearly not just a genre tag. It's a biography. It's his actual life.
It's the truth. He lived it.
And Mon Rovîa represents an entirely new archetype of the modern folk musician. He uses digital tools, TikTok algorithms, Spotify playlists to build something that is intensely physical and communal. He uses the isolation of the internet to bring people into a physical room, into a place to gather, to process deep personal trauma together.
He literally used the screen to get them to the stage.
Precisely. And in doing so, he completely redefined who gets to sing the songs of Appalachia. He reminded all of us that the roots of that music go so much deeper and travel so much further than we usually want to admit.
It's incredibly powerful stuff. It really makes you take a step back and think about what music is actually for. Like at its core, is it just background noise while you do the dishes and commute? Or is it a functional tool?
That is the exact question he's forcing us to ask.
So here is my final question for you listening to this deep dive right now. If Mon Rovîa's core mission is to heal with others, how do you engage with the art you consume? Think about it. When you buy a ticket and go to a concert, are you just there to be passively entertained, to stand there and hold your glowing phone up to record a video you'll never watch? Or are you looking for a place to gather? Are you actually looking to heal?
It actively challenges the listener to be more present, to participate in the healing, to not just mindlessly consume the art, but to truly connect through it.
Absolutely. If you haven't listened to the X yet, do yourself a huge favor tonight. Don't just hit shuffle on his top tracks. Listen to them in the intended order. The Wandering, Trials, The Dying of Self, Atonement. Take the full journey, feel the descent, and then feel the return. And then, when you're ready, crank up Bloodline.
It is more than worth the time. It might change how you listen to music.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you on the next one.
Stay curious.